Finance Committee on August the 21st. Dr. Jones?
Here.
Counselor Waltney? Counselor Allamon? Counselor Smith?
Here.
Counselor Harden. Well, let's
Here.
just say who's here. We got 3 here.
He's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got 3.
Yeah, we
We
have
have a
3.
quorum.
All right, wonderful. Thank you.
So we have 2 absent.
All right, I would make a motion to dispense with the minutes as presented and approve them.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Moved by Mrs. Smith, second by Mr. Harden. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. That's 3-0. That passes. Is anyone here for a specific item on finance? Just stormwater drainage.
I don't think that's on, that's
Okay,
not on.
That's not on finance?
That's not on.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's, yeah, it's 01 and 08
When
23.
has this changed?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, no,
Emily
no.
Horn?
No.
Yeah. There they are. They're over
I
there.
sent you the new one.
I know
There
the
you are.
Gazette right here, but
Okay.
it's different from the one we originally
Okay.
did.
Let's take that out of order, so unless you want to.
May have made a
Wait.
typo or something.
We do whatever
Is it
you
significantly
Mike,
different?
No.
let's take this out of order, under new business, 010823. Request to accept stormwater master plan from Kimley Horn. Kirk Mills and Candace. How do you pronounce your last name? Keith. Keith, okay. And they are here
This
to
does-
present the
does this
stormwater
require
master
action?
plan. And the appropriate action, I guess, would be to accept the plan, I guess. Once you want to go ahead and present?
We can't, Candace is gonna drive, so.
Okay.
I'm gonna drive. I can't tell you that.
All right, Candace, you have the floor.
Yeah, come on up.
No
Do
pressure.
you mind our special sign out there? She's Candace with Kimley, with you, with.
Yeah.
Kimley Horn.
Candace Key with Kimley Horn.
Candace Keith.
Got it? Alright, perfect. Alright, so we're gonna try to be pretty quick here. We've got, up on the screen here, is an interactive map that we've got that gives all the details of the master plan, and what we did. We're gonna kinda go quickly through just a quick overview, and then we'll go through some of the projects that came out of it. So, I'm Candace Key, Block and Key. So, it was a stormwater engineer for this. Kirk is in the back there. Y'all know Kirk. And we got Carolyn here too. She helped out a lot, so we appreciate it. All right, so just to give you all a sense of how this is laid out, this is all online. It's an interactive tool, and folks will be able to come in here, click, and see what was done for the stormwater master plan, and be able to access all this. So we won't look at all of it right now. There's a video on here and a bunch of things, but we're going to try to get the condensed version. So we all know that the purpose of the stormwater master plan was to figure out areas where we got flooded and figure out some solutions to some of those things in those areas. So Kirk, if you click on that priority, there we go, that's perfect. Keep scrolling down, let's keep scrolling down. All right, so we ended up developing about 7 different areas that we took a real intensive look at. So we did some public feedback, did some public engagement, and figured out where there were just complaints throughout. And what you're seeing up here on the screen is where we were seeing where folks were saying that there were issues across the city here. And then we took some input from y'all as well with where we know some issues are located at. Those are the yellow stars that are popping up on the screen. And we took those 2 things and we said, okay, what areas do we want to focus on based off of where we know there's issues, just from historically knowing there's some problems, and then where do we get some complaints and things of that nature, and trying to figure out where we want to centralize the focus of the study. All right, Kirk, if you'll run through to the proposed improvements, you'll just click on that, or scroll. That'll work. All right, so we're gonna hop right over into the projects that we're recommending here. So just to give you all a sense, on the screen now, this is one area, we've got 7, but this is Kenilworth Ridge, Kenilworth Drive, Ridge Road here. And in existing conditions, or if you just stay on it, that's fine. So in existing conditions, we've got there's an inlet here that's been blocked. And so we wanted to look at just this, what's on the screen now is the 1-year floodplain that's mapped in blue here. And then Kirk just popped on a few other flood areas on here as well. So we've got the 1 year in blue, and then we go all the way up to the 500 year.
Does that show that Kenilworth is actually in a floodplain?
So this isn't a floodplain. Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate it. This isn't a flood. So this is the flood area resulting from the model. So it can pick up what's on streets and things of that nature. But this isn't the FEMA floodplain. That's different from this. Yeah.
Okay.
So the FEMA floodplain is still centralized, around the creek here. But the model we'll model the streets, we'll model inlets and all of that, and we get what's happening there. Does everyone, have that general definition of the 1 year? I'm saying the 1 year to the 500 year. Do I need to explain that a little bit, or?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. So the 1 through 500 year, could we actually go back? Yeah, perfect, there we go. Definition of
100%.
flooding here, yeah. So when we say flooding, we can kind of quantify it in a couple different ways. Usually we'll go by storm event, and we'll say, hey, in any given year, a 1 year event always has a chance of happening. But say a 10-year event has about a 10% chance of happening, so it's really based off of a probability. Similarly, we can say a 25-year event has about a 4% chance of happening in a year, and then a 100-year event has a 1% chance of happening in a year. So a lot of times when you see that FEMA Zone AE floodplain, usually that's your 100-year event. Like I mentioned, this one's a little different. We have that 100-year event along the creek there, but then we also have roads and things like that modeled. That's usually where FEMA doesn't go, but we just went beyond that with our modeling. It lets us look at, this is what we would call, we generally call that riverine flooding that happens around the creek. And then when we get into the streets and things, we'll usually call that localized flooding. So that's just a little bit separate from what FEMA keeps track of.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
As part of y'all's work, did y'all happen to quantify how many of those particular storm events we've had in whatever period of time?
In
Is
the
that
last X years.
Yeah.
We did not do that. We did not look at the existing storm data. No, we did not do
Okay,
that.
okay.
Hale did a little bit of that, I think, the last time he reported.
Is it?
Yeah, I just took the gauge that's in Shades Creek, and it seemed to me like whenever the creek hit a certain elevation, that sort of was also a storm event, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was the 1 or the 5 or the 25, and then I just looked at the gauge.
Okay.
So I have some of that information.
Okay. Is there anybody that can, I mean, I guess that's a general area. Could we get that information about the general area? Like would any of the weather meteorology people or the Jefferson County Emergency Management, would
Sure.
they have any of that?
We have a meeting on Wednesday with SWIMA,
Okay.
and we'll
Oh, good.
ask.
Could we ask them if we could get that?
That's
That'd be
right.
great. Thank you, Kim.
Right, yeah. So here's the product that we're proposing here in proposed conditions. So we've got here coming in, and there's that pipe that's been kind of blocked right here. There's an inlet right here really that's been blocked, and so unblocking that pipe, when we did that, saw a little bit of some more flooding happening down here because we were unblocking this and letting more get down. So we've got unblocking this pipe here and then putting in a closed drainage system in here along Homewood Drive, and then upsizing one of the pipes leading down to the creek here. So by doing that, we were able to reduce the flooding that we were seeing along Kenilworth here. You can probably see here in this area, these 3 homes here are no longer being subject to some of the more extreme events because it's not overtopping that curve there and coming down. And then similarly, we've got over here, some of the homes over here are no longer at risk as well. There you go. Oh, you were just there. Perfect. Yeah, so you can see it existing here, right? We're kind of hopping that curve right through here and some of the more significant events. And then over in here, we've got some pockets there. So we were able to clean that up by unblocking this pipe, this inlet over here, letting flow get down and closing the system in.
Okay, so has the part over behind Hillwood, has that happened already, Kale? Has that happened already? Or is that just in the plan for the next budget year? I know the pipe's unblocked, but the part that, like you said, closing down there behind the Hillwood, because I did have people on Hillwood calling me saying, all of a sudden, we're getting all this water coming down the hill from.
Right, so the pipe is not blocked, so none of this work that Candace is saying
Okay,
is been
this is
done.
the
This is just a
proposed,
plan.
okay, sorry,
This is
I just saw
just a
pipe
plan.
unblocked, and I was like, okay, they've already unblocked the pipe. No,
No,
they
sorry
haven't.
about that.
Okay,
No
so,
work has been done, this is just a study, and so they saw the problem, and they said, here's how we can fix the problem.
okay, so these are the projects that they're suggesting that we do based on
And then
their
we
study.
prioritize,
Got it,
yeah,
got it, okay,
exactly.
thank you.
Exactly.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No worries, no. All right. So that's Kenilworth and Ridge there, and Ridge there. Just the-
243.
Yeah, cost estimate there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And then here on Laurel Place, Primrose, Melrose through here. So in existing conditions, there's that pipe that just kind of discharges here out onto Laurel Place here. and then that flow just gets down and causes a little bit of a mess from a stormwater standpoint. We've got some flooding that just happens around there. So what we settled on with this one, was trying to take that pipe and bring a pipe down this alley right here, is within y'all's right of way. So bringing a pipe at least partially down that alley within the right of way and continuing it down, to tie with Primrose Place here, and continue down towards the creek. So when we did that, we were able to clean up, you can see here with the mapping here, a lot of this flooding that was here, yep, this gets eliminated in here, cause it's not a pipe just discharging onto the street here, right? It's being closed in and it's being carried down, down this way as well. Alright.
Oh, wait, can we, yeah, what that price is?
Yep, and then the price on that one, a little bit pricier, that's about $582,000 there. We'll go and do that right away back in the back of the alleys there. Alright, this is a little bit of a larger, scale project here, but this is we call this Homewood Elementary, but essentially we know we've got the improvements going on up here, currently.
Edgewood.
And that's
Yeah,
Edgewood.
Edgewood. Yeah, so we know we have the improvements going on up here. We said, well, what would it take to try to eliminate some more of the flooding and get this down kind of along here, to get all the way down to the creek here. So you can see what we did, said, hey, if we upsize this pipe down here to 36-inch from College to Westover and down, and then this guy right here, upsizing the one that crosses Broadway Street here to 5 foot. You can see the difference with the one playing down here. We're able to eliminate for these folks on the downstream end here.
But we've already done, Kale, we've already done
Up here.
at the playground.
Yeah, up here.
Yep, to the
Mhm.
playground.
Yeah.
We did to the Edgewood playground upstream.
That's
And
right.
so what they're proposing here is we take away the properties that are highlighted there and
So the downstream.
The
green and
downstream.
yellow,
Downstream.
right?
Got it, okay,
Here.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, so these ones would get pulled out by doing that. Alright, yeah, you scroll, this one's a little, still around, that's about $490,000 to do that one there, but we'll get those folks there out. And at the end, so y'all know, we'll go through a ranking of projects and we'll compare the cost versus the score, we'll talk about that in a little bit here. And we had two kind of tables where we were able to rank, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Alright, so this one here is at Bellevue Circle, in existing conditions, you know, kinda up in here, we've got, flooding happening back through here. Got that, the driveway crosses over here, there's that kind of sort of bridge culvert really right here. And in this area, we've got some flooding happening through here and existing. So proposed, we bypassed, along Bellevue Circle and then down Somerset Drive to get to the tributary there. And when we did that, we were able to improve the level of service with these 1, 2, 3, 4, properties. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, excuse me, properties here. And I apologize, I just said level of service. Yep.
I'm
Did you have-
sorry,
No,
I'm
no
just
worries.
trying to get my bearings.
No,
Yeah.
no worries. Want me to slow?
No, that's
I
okay,
apologize
I
for
know
that.
where you are now.
I introduced a new word there, but level of service there, I just wanted to point that out. So what we define for level of service, if we look at the existing infrastructure and say, hey, we're able to get the 5 years able to pass through here without causing an issue from a flooding standpoint for properties, or the 10-year, for instance. So we define that as the existing level of service or what the existing system is able to convey. And then we look at, well, what does it take to increase that level of service? What does it take to make that stormwater infrastructure function for, say, the 100-year, for instance, or something higher than what it currently serves? Alright, we're gonna run through existing conditions here in the next area, which is called Glenwood area. Really, it's East Glenwood Drive, and then Glenwood Drive really west, between here. So we've got, we're in existing conditions. You'll go back here. Perfect. So in existing conditions here, we've got flows overtopping the curb here. We see the 1-year event, and then the 2, et cetera, all the way up. We've got it overtopping the curb and getting back and hitting these houses here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 there. In proposed, we pick up that flow, because we've got overflow here. We pick up that flow with a pipe and bring it down and get it to Roseland Drive there. And when we do that, we essentially eliminate that flooding that's there. You can see with the blue is gone away. The others have as well. Alright. Now this one, definitely pricier. Very expensive by the time we talk about right of way and getting that through there. And we looked at going a different direction here, but just with black and gray and all that, this was the the, at least easier, more cost-effective way to get there, but still a price on that.
Excuse me, when you
Yes.
reference the right of way
Yes.
in the price, is that because we'd have to obtain additional right of way?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Yep, cause that's
Obtain
not,
additional
not city
right-of-way.
right away back there, it's
Okay.
private property.
Yep. Exactly. Alright, this one we're showing in here, you know, folks here have been having a hard time, over here at Overton Park, along Ridge Road. And we looked at adding an additional 8x4 culvert in here to supplement what's already there to try to get more flow downstream. We're able to significantly help on the downstream end here, and we got existing conditions on, so Kirk, if you can pan over to proposed and maybe toggle back and forth between the two to give a good idea here, some of the changes. So you'll see this blue area in the 1 year is decreasing, and you're gonna see the 2 year has decreased as well, perfect, thanks Kirk, and the 5 year as well. So we were able to see some elimination. We weren't able to completely eliminate on this upstream side here by doing that, but we were able to see some reduction down in these areas with the flooding that's getting across. I know these folks, you know, have their issues too.
So Candace,
yes.
cause we have some neighbors from this
Mhm.
area who are
Is
here.
that Ken, Lori, is that your house right there?
Yeah,
It's-
it's,
Which one is yours, right?
Yeah, it's the, right
That one,
there.
right to the
Right
right,
there,
yeah.
yep, that's, so we looked at a couple of things here, and the report will show that, we looked at a number of things, to try to figure out something that would be, you know, cost feasible, and, long story short, it's a lot of water, and trying to get it somewhere. So we looked at a couple things, the Corps won't let you put detention up in upstream within, a perennial stream, we had
Okay.
thought about that, but the Corps won't let you do that. We looked at this additional 8x4 to bring more flow down. We looked at another one to try to go around, and we're just seeing we needed such a large volume to get, you know, to make an impact there. You know, this is just the 8x4, you know, and we're at, you'll see the cost here, in a second. We'll scroll over here. So,
Oh,
yep,
wow.
so you can see.
Is that, you're saying to put in that 4x8?
Yep, so we'll have to go this whole way.
Box culvert?
And we've got an existing one in, but we'll have to do an additional one. This is just an additional 8x4 coming down, so there's additional right of way.
And,
that's
and,
needed.
and for that,
Mm.
almost $3.5 million,
Yep.
it does, I see what you're saying, it helps over here, but it
Mhm.
really doesn't do much
Right, we
over
still
here.
have the issue of it funneling up and getting
Right.
to right here.
Wow.
Yeah, but by the time you come all the way through here, you know, we have to
Yeah.
go alongside the existing culverts that's there, you know, the right of way really encompasses that existing culvert that's there. And we have to add, you know, all that right of way to try to get that. And so some of that includes thinking of, hey, we're probably gonna hit a house or two, right, to do that. And that's included in that cost too, when we talk about right of way. It's not just the land, we had to
Right.
go through a house and get
Candace,
to
that's a
put that
good
in.
example, to maybe talk about the inundation areas didn't change a lot, but the flood interval condition, those boundaries changed
Mhm.
a little more dramatically.
On this one,
Yeah,
through this
just
pinch point
versus
there.
what's inundated with each,
Yeah, if you toggle back here a little bit.
like the impacted houses versus what's taken out.
Uh-huh, yeah, if you kinda toggle back and forth, you'll see here, you know, within that 1 year, for instance, you know, right, you see that pretty dramatic change, so it's able to get some of the smaller storm events, you know,
Right.
mitigate for that a little bit, but then you talk about getting to the larger ones, right?
It's
And we're
harder.
still dealing with the
'Cause
larger
there's so much
ones.
water.
Are these houses in a 100-year floodplain right now?
So right now, these are not, so the creek is actually down here, and the floodplain runs around the creek there. A lot of times with FEMA, you know, they'll map through the creek here, and they won't necessarily map some of the tributaries and things coming into the creek. And you get that happening, and then you have things like this happening, right, where it's not mapped up there, and you really could map it, but FEMA's models don't go up that way. So that's what's happened here, there's the existing floodplain comes through here, and then by the time you do the modeling for the tributary, you can see we've got the 100-year and all of that in this area, you know, it's pretty significant.
That's
So,
really-
so you really think they are in a 100-year floodplain?
Yeah, for the localized flooding, yeah.
And I'm assuming, like you said, y'all explored other options, and those options were even pricier than that and didn't necessarily
Right,
make a bigger difference.
exactly, yeah.
So there's an existing culvert, where is that?
Yeah, so that existing culvert actually runs pretty close to here,
It's-
yeah, right there.
It's kinda right
So
near.
are you telling us that you're widening that culvert?
So it's adding an additional barrel to that culvert, so that existing culvert leaves an 8x4 already, and it's doubling that, and
Okay.
putting one right next to it, and saying if we run it from, here, all the way down to the
there.
creek here, what would we looking at in cost? And that's what we're looking at in cost.
Yeah, cause that initial culvert, the one that exists, is fairly near to their house, and it, like you said, it's just being, it's
Yeah,
being
it's
overwhelmed.
And it just gets backed up, and then, talk about when the creek is backed up, and then that backs up, and then you got all that.
That's not.
Yep.
At one point, they had talked about, like a preliminary solution, well, not solution, but, to help is to clean out that culvert between the park and, yeah, the
Right
bridge
here,
right there.
down through here.
To down through there, like, I know that
Okay,
there's a
the
lot of
cleaner.
construction stuff from construction sites that get washed into that, and so, I think that there was talk of that, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's happened or not.
Berkeley, did we blow out that, I'm sorry, I just called you, have we blown that one out? I thought we had, haven't we? Yeah.
It's been a couple years, and I think y'all pulled out.
Yeah, we,
probably a
and
ton
the
of
problem we
rock.
get is you get the regional flood like they do, and it.
Everything
it's
comes down.
Another year, it's filled right back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, now we're able to maintain it better, but.
If you actually went to the park and the culvert there that runs the water down, if you see any rocks that are missing on the side, they're in the drain.
Yep.
It's clogging the drain.
Right, 'cause they
Yeah,
run
we
in.
pulled, I don't know how many out of there.
Yeah.
I
And
have
I'm
a
assuming
question.
sometimes the truck doesn't fix that, like sometimes that has to be a manual.
Yeah, yeah, we have to send the guys down in there
Yeah,
and get it.
yeah.
I have a question about that as well. Is it my understanding that at one point that was an open culvert and then it was closed over by the city?
It was.
Yeah.
The previous owners to us, 20 years ago, Miss Gilly said that it was covered during her 20-year stay. And it's covered and it's got plants growing on it and everything, so.
That culvert was built in 1980, excuse me. I lived on East Edgewood Drive, 1977.
Okay. Yeah, she was there about that time.
And, I mean, is there any benefit to it being covered at this point? I mean, or is there any, does it get clogged more because it's covered, or is there thought about that?
Well, is that a safety thing? Because I know we've already had one kid get washed down into that.
Well, it's open in the park though, right?
Right.
Oh, so this is outside the park, yeah. I don't know.
There's just no property to take the open channel
Yeah,
from
through.
Overton all the way to.
All the way
Greenville.
down, there's no property there.
But
It's
and
all
it doesn't,
right-of-way.
it wouldn't help the situation, I mean, I'm just brainstorming, because I do have friends that
I
live on
mean,
the
yeah,
other
it would,
side.
it would certainly help. An open channel is certainly better than a closed system.
You're not limiting the amount that's going in, it can go out or over.
Yeah, we just back up.
I know we got great civil engineers here and stuff. Could you dig that deeper and keep it the same width? Cause I know the width's the issue. And,
You still have to have positive gravity to Griffin Brook.
forgot about that gravity problem.
Okay, now hold on a second. Let me level set with what we're doing here. We are not trying to solve these problems.
Okay.
I mean, we'd
appreciate
like
that.
to solve the problems.
Yeah.
But all we're
We're just
doing,
presenting
we're
it.
hearing the report, and then we've gotta rely on our engineer to review and come back with possible recommendations. We obviously cannot afford this, so we've gotta be creative and have you come back, in the process here that we're
That's
talking
right,
about.
our process.
You're using this as one of your tools to determine what can we do to improve flooding within the city and reduce that as much as possible. And then you would come back with a possible solution after you've read this, and then we would have discussion on all that. But I'd love to solve all these
Yeah, I know.
tonight,
Wouldn't it
but
be nice?
we're just not able to do that. Let's want to make sure we're same boat you're in.
Well, and I just wanted to understand if it was alleviating any of the flooding on that side, and we're basically saying it probably won't help the east side of Bridge.
It's very minimal, you know, for what it's doing here. It's still just getting caught up here and then, you know, it can't get down. Right, so we call this area, Homewood Middle, but here's Little Run Road up here, and then kinda coming down here, the system comes down where it ties into, the creek here, you know, further down, sorry, this thing is in the way here. Move further down along here to get back to Griffin here, so, thanks, appreciate it, well, nope, still there, that's okay, alright. So this one, in this area, lots of just localized flooding, if you go back to existing conditions, you'll switch, perfect. Along through here, this is a little bit harder to see, but we've outlined here, there are about 69 properties just along here with all the buildings and whatnot, that are at risk within this area, through here. And so what we said is we looked at it for our proposed condition here, we looked at this property up here, seems pretty vacant, thought, well, hey, we can put some detention up here and try to slow it down. What is that gonna do? Is that gonna help, you know, further downstream? Or if you go over to proposed, please. Alright, and when we did that, you'll see here, the lines have drastically been pulled in. And a lot of these properties here, are having their level of service, as we called it earlier before, has improved. So we've got about 45 properties for which that overall system could convey, you know, the 10-year or the 5-year before, and now we're conveying the 10-year up to, in some cases, the 500-year. These folks are getting pulled out. So this one's impacting a lot of properties, and we had a lot of detention up here to be able to do that. There looked like there was a little bit of a vacant parcel up here that maybe has a stormwater park or something like that.
We don't own it.
To hold that water up before it comes down. through
Is that on the
system.
property of, is that on the,
School.
apartment, the old
Yes.
apartment, the
Yes.
school board
School
property?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have to negotiate with them.
we don't own that.
Barry, there's a ton of flow coming off the mountain for mowing.
Oh, sure, yeah,
Dude,
sure.
That's a great spot to hold it up,
Yeah,
to get the benefit of all those.
right. And like we said, unfortunately, we don't own that property.
Right.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we pulled it into the cost estimate here, you'll see here on the curve view, scroll down there.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question? How
that-
large?
You got those
How
parts.
much land, how large of a retention pond would you put there?
Yeah, well, we don't have the number right here, I apologize for that.
Okay.
I can send that along, I apologize, yeah.
Just curious how
Mhm.
much land it's taken.
We did see there's about 3 different kind of tracks or parcels broken out through here, you have to get
It's
all of
about
them,
20
you know,
acres.
so. It's a significant amount of acreage, you know, to pick up to do it. And then finally over here, off of Oxmoor Road, this one is interesting, in that there's not an overall recommended project for this, because of the implications of any proposed, project that we were looking at in this area here. So there's flooding, the 1 year that comes down, you can see that this property over here, the 1 year starts kind of drops down this way, there's a curve cut over here and comes down here, and then you got flow kind of coming through here, in existing conditions. So we knew that there was some issue there, and further downstream too, at Acton Avenue and all of that, and we said, well, if we could try to do something to see if we could hold it up here, or try to pipe something through here, let's see what that would look like. But when we did that, if you go to proposed, Kurt, so what we looked at here is just to put a pipe to get it over to, there's a ALDOT swale over here. So we looked at if we could get a pipe to connect to that ALDOT swale. Detention through here, we looked at all kinds of options, and again, we needed so much space to try to hold it up, that the detention just wasn't, we were finding just wasn't gonna be feasible. So that's how we landed at just bringing a pipe over to that ALDOT swale and seeing if we can't, get some of this flooding reduced. But when we did that, we saw an increase in flooding downstream, right? So we said, we can't do that and cause a problem for more folks or other folks just to solve the problem up here, you know? So we have it in here, we show it, we didn't cost this one out here, cause we knew we increased flooding for other folks, that wasn't gonna be the thing to do, you know? there's some more additional pages in here, we didn't wanna take up too much of y'all's time, but the overall process when we looked at these, actually, Kirk, can you go back real quick? I'll just really quickly, the overall process when we looked at these, we came up with a number of different potential projects in each area. And we gave each one a score. We said, okay, what is it gonna cost the city to implement this project? And that's one part of the score. And then we said, hey, to what degree does the project address the issues that are going on? And that's another part of the score. We brought those two things together and we got an overall score out of 20, right? And then what we did is we said, okay, here's that score out of 20 and here's a cost estimate for that project. If we look at both of those two things together, what recommendation can we make about this project by looking at those two things together? All right, and Kirk, if you can go to the findings and recommendations, we'll skip all this. This gets into more detail on how it's done. We'll be able to go through and see. But let's go to this. This is a summary of all 7 of the improvement projects that we recommend for implementation. And Kirk, if you scroll down here, we categorize them 2 ways. So you're gonna see 2 different tables. One table we based off of score and cost. And that's how we came up with the recommended projects, and that's what you're seeing in the very beginning. And then we did a second table as well. So what this is doing is it's saying, here's all of our projects in all 7 of these areas, right? And then it's saying, well, which one should we do first? Which one should we do second, third, et cetera? And that's how what these 2 tables are referring to. So like I said, the first one is, hey, this is the score. It's up further, but this is the score for each project, and this is the cost. And just looking at those 2 things relative to each other, how does that rank? How do each of these projects rank against each other? You'll see some of these, this one's got a score of 19 and is $500, almost $1,000, but it's a little bit, ranked a little bit lower than this one. That's just because of the cost, and we know there's some opportunity for funding there, so we went ahead and said, hey, we've got the opportunity for funding from a grant, put this first, that should get done, right?
And we actually applied for a grant this
Yep.
summer for that project.
Yeah, didn't we vote on that?
Is that the Terry Sewell grant?
Nope.
No, that was
That's
this was different, yeah.
Okay.
This was the 8M.
The 8M grant, yeah.
So that's that grant project, number 1, funding is there, let's get it done. After that, we started to rank with the scores, and you'll see here, this one, 19.4 for this Homewood Middle School areas we're calling it, but 3.5 million, right? So that's a little bit higher than the one that's obviously 14 and more expensive, right? So we have this table by score and cost, and then the second one is looking at the score and cost as well, but it also looked at cost effectiveness. So we said how many properties are gonna be impacted and how many properties is the level of service gonna be improved from. We actually divided the total cost by that and said, hey, it would cost this much per house. It might cost $50,000 per house, or it might cost $500,000 per house that's impacted. So we did that calculation and came up with this list here, just so rank 1 through 7. And you'll start to see here some of those, some of the projects here. We got Homewood Elementary here at the top here. And the order is a little different when we looked at cost effectiveness relative to how many properties were being impacted. All right. The other thing we looked at, and I know we talked a lot about projects, we also did an ordinance review and did a benchmarking analysis, we call it, but we'll look at the ordinances and we'll say, hey, how do these compare to folks around y'all, right? How do the ordinances compare to other municipalities that have had a lot of success with their stormwater, ordinances? So those are all over the country. There's some real good markers on. One happens to be Atlanta. There's some in Texas, things like that. And we have a whole matrix that we build out and say, hey, we should be thinking about maybe implementing these things relative to what some other folks are doing around the country. But then it's more heavily weighted towards what folks are doing around y'all, just to have, okay, this is what folks around here are doing. And that's how we came up with a total of 13 revision recommendations there. They're not listed here. We can provide those in more detail. But just to help beef up the ordinances a little bit, look at things like downstream analyses, maybe consider that, looking at, mitigating up to maybe the 50-year or detaining for the 50-year versus, the 25-year, things like that to help strengthen the ordinances and give y'all some more regulatory power to try to keep some of the issues with capacity from getting any worse. So, and that's it for the presentation. Any more questions?
Kel, what is the update again? I know I asked you recently about the Terry Sewell grant request.
We expect to hear back from them in December.
Okay, and is that why that area is not, it's a little bit up from Overton Park. The area I'm talking about, Canis, is Huntington, Lancaster,
Okay.
Roxbury.
Okay.
Right.
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was 200,000? Was that right?
No,
What-
I'm sorry, 200.
What was the amount, no, what was the amount for the grant?
Oh, 1.2 million.
Oh, it's 1.2 million, okay.
I had 1 million and you had 200, so it's together.
All right.
Yeah.
1.2.
We were close. I just had to add.
Okay, so I guess the proper motion be to accept the report and then send it to
All right,
Kale and the mayor.
I make a motion to accept the Kimberly Horn report and send it to Cale
And
Smith.
I will second that.
Okay. Mr. Hardin
Thank
made
you,
the motion.
thank you, Candace. Very good job.
Mrs. Smith seconded that. Any other questions? Thank you for that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign. We're still 3-0.
Good job.
Okay, moving up, back up to, old business 250417, consideration of 18th Street revitalization project. We still have a little bit on Valley Avenue that we're waiting on, city of Birmingham, right?
That's right, the traffic signal pole.
The traffic signal pole, so we're gonna carry that over till we get that resolved. So we'll carry that over without objection. 2006-23, request for consideration of city manager. We're gonna carry that over as well due to time, but we're gonna, by next time, we should have like more of a calendar of when we need to handle everything, and I'd like that, written out for us. So we'll carry that over for our next meeting.
Berkeley, I messed up on that. I didn't realize we already sent that to finance for paving. So sorry, can we carry that over to the next meeting?
120723.
Because we gotta figure out exactly a timeline on that, the revised paving.
Oh,
Or do you wanna go try to
We
figure it out
haven't
today?
gotten down there yet. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Just hold on. Okay, 120723, request to review 21-22 audited financial results per fiscal policy and make any required transfers. So as everybody knows, we have our fiscal policy, and this is the time that we determine with each of our fiscal policies, did we pass it, did we fail it, and if we did fail that test, then what is the required action? And overall, we only have, one failed test that we need to transfer.
All right, can you slow down a little bit?
So I'm gonna let,
All right.
I'm gonna let Robert go over this.
Okay. Now, this report is of 9/30/22, the period we just got through with our audit. And this is the council's fiscal policy. This is what y'all created to be fiscally responsible for the city. So it's your recommendations that are in the fiscal policy. We had a budget, the 22-23 budget was $63,550,557. We amended that budget by $211,694. That was all the amendments that were done to it in that fiscal year. Out of the original budget, we had the payment to the Board of Education of $10,306,000, and then we transferred to the debt service $6,500,000. The transfer to the debt service is the additional 1 cent sales tax that was adopted when we created the funding for the $110 million bond issue. That number originally was 8.2 million because that's what we had estimated the 1 cent sales tax to generate, but we are required by the bond covenants to keep a transfer of the amount of the bond payments, and we have been having to use the additional sales tax to fund the general fund due to the increases in the general fund.
So are you saying, we stated last year we're gonna put 8.2 million in, because that's what we thought we were going to get, but we only got 6.5 million?
No, sir. I'm saying that back in 2016, the 8.2 million was what we anticipated the additional sales tax to generate.
Right.
And the first year,
Each-
that's.
a year.
A year.
Okay.
It's generating more than that now.
Okay,
It's
I'm
generating
sorry.
about
Okay.
10.5 now.
Okay, okay.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we are using more of that 1 cent sales tax to fund the general services of the city, as opposed to, it was originally it was originally put into debt service to fund the debt payments, but we are meeting the obligation of
meeting
the
obligation
warrants.
and debt
Yeah,
service.
we're meeting them.
So we're
It's the-
applying
it's
that
the sales-
additional money to the general fund.
To the
That
general
sales
fund.
tax has increased, and we're using that to fund general fund.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, so we got a surplus, we're putting it in the general fund.
Because the cost
It's
has
just
gone
at
up
some
so
point in time,
much.
we gotta watch the general fund so that we can make sure we put enough in there that we don't get short.
I got it, I understand.
Because we have to put at least the increase in
Okay,
there.
thank you.
Kinda like a commission check,
Yeah.
Okay, and we ended the 9/30/22 year, we ended it with a surplus of $290,194. Of the tests that we apply to our general fund based on the budget is, we use a test for, I'm trying to think of what I didn't put my numbers on here, let me look and see.
25%.
Yeah, 25%,
of
yeah,
surplus.
25% of our,
Next year,
the
20,
surplus.
25% of our cash balance on hand at 9/30, and 25% of our budget was $11,685,000, and we had and 26,000 on hand, so we passed the 25% test. On the 30% test, we did not pass. That required a $14 million surplus, and we had a $12 million surplus. So that requires a transfer of 25% of our surplus into our public funds investment. So the recommendation is that you transfer $72,549 to the public fund investment account.
Can I?
Absolutely.
Can I jump in? just for a second?
Absolutely.
On that 14,000, it wouldn't really, that's surplus of that, but the fiscal policy says that it's looking at the surplus for 9/30/22 and comparing it to the 22-23 budget that we're now almost through.
Almost through.
But
Yep.
the fiscal policy says, okay, you gotta look at the 22-23 budget, and you gotta have 25% of that in your rainy day fund, which is a cash reserve, and we passed that at 12 million, like Robert said. But the second tier of the fiscal policy says that's not good enough. You gotta have 35%.
30 or 35?
It's 30%.
30%, sorry. And so 30% is the 14 million. I was afraid that you might be confused about that's not the surplus, but that's what, we gotta keep funding it every year from the surplus until we get 30% of our budget. But I don't say the problem, but every year our budget goes up so much that we don't meet the 30% tier.
Yeah, we didn't meet it last year.
But we transfer,
But-
but you don't transfer dollar for dollar, it just says you have to
That's
take
fine.
25% of that, so that's why every year we keep having to transfer. But, I mean, that's just, it's not a bad thing, cause that's growing our cash reserve for economic uncertainty, but it's just, that's because the fiscal policy has two different levels, you gotta make the 25 and the.
Okay, so it was 290,000, so the recommendation, the first recommendation is to transfer $72,540.
$549, right,
$49
to public funds
to
investment,
public funds investment.
and that will
What's
leave
the
the
cash
surplus amount at $217,646.
That's the cash reserve for economic uncertainty.
Okay.
I'm sorry, cash reserve for economic investment, not public funds investment.
Okay.
Um,
Is that one that's at Raymond James?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because that's the first one. All right, keep going and then we'll.
Right.
take
All right,
it.
the next criteria is on compensated absences and risk management. We're required to keep a $1 million assigned fund balance for risk management, and our compensated absences at 9/30/22 were $2,639,980, and we have an unassigned fund balance of $3.8 million, so we passed that test. Then the other is our the fiscal policy for based on our budget. Again, you take out your Board of Education and your sales tax transfers, and this is our public fund investment cash balance. We're required to have for the test, it's $7,478,000, and we got 9.4, so we passed that test. The next test is our capital reserve. The fiscal policy states that we need to have $750,000 unassigned in our capital funds, and we had, well, we had two we had 2.8 million of cash balance, but we had 4.6 encumbered, so we have a 2.38 cash balance. So, that passes. I'm sorry, I said the 460,000 is our carryover fund balance that we were used to fund, to balance the fund. So we do pass on the capital projects funds.
And
Did-
can I just?
Go ahead.
Sorry. You know, you asked me a long time ago what keeps me up at night. I always say capital.
Yeah.
And you know what Robert said, capital looks really good right there, but I did just want to throw a caveat with Robert and I'll say, because we had to do the arbitrage report on the 2016 bonds, because we held that money for a while, the last of it after we built that. So we did end up moving to reimburse ourselves for the 18th Street East, because you remember we didn't do the ALDOT like
Correct.
so.
Right. East,
And
yeah.
we needed, because the interest rates are, so we needed to use that money up, so that's one of the reasons capital looks, so I didn't want you to, I'm
That
always
was about
cautious,
a-
I'm always
Right.
cautiously optimistic, that's got a one-time influx from the remaining 2016 bonds to reimburse ourselves for the 18th Street that we wrote out of capital.
That was about a $1.3 million transfer.
It
Close to
it
that,
helps,
yeah.
I just wanna let you know that it just didn't pop up,
Right.
so I'm always, cautious about capital, so anyway. I'm not trying to be a rain on a parade, I'm just saying,
I want to say
that's all.
one thing. Arbitrage has not been a problem for the last 10 years. It is a problem now.
Because the interest rates.
Interest rates are so high. So we have to spend that money more quickly.
Right.
More quickly, yeah.
We got kind of our hands slapped a little bit on that one, but that was a big project and a big bond issue, so that one was very complicated anyway. But like you said, we didn't, just during the time of all that happening, the interest rates started rising.
Yeah, we're earning like 5.5% on some of the money we have invested, and we're paying in the 2.5 and 3. So
We're gonna have a problem if we don't spend this money quickly.
we can't earn more than we pay.
But I
Right.
guess, and then talking to that, we have projects that we paid, they just weren't necessarily earmarked for that, but that's why we had to
Sure.
reimburse capital for that 18th Street project.
That's what
They just gave it transfers.
Okay.
We don't have any problems with finding capital projects.
Debt service fund.
Okay, on the debt service fund, we have listed here what our bond payments and lease payments are. We had a cash balance at 9/30, the bond payments, lease payments are 16.2 million annually. We had a cash balance of 20.6 million. And we had a use of fund balance, to balance that fund, which brought us down to 15.7 million. And, we are slightly unfunded, in the debt service fund, but this is before you look at the $6 million accounts receivable that we had on property tax. So there is a recommendation that you, would fund debt service with 474,000, but in looking at this, and we would not recommend you do that, because you take into account the $6 million in property tax that we have in accounts receivable. As soon as that is done, it will fund that, fully fund that debt service account. So I would not recommend that transfer.
Okay.
Okay, so we're saying we failed that test, however, we've got that $6 million that's sitting out there
Yes.
that's gonna take care of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that a timing thing really more than anything else?
More than anything, yes, sir.
Okay, so the only recommendation is to make the transfer.
That would make that one transfer.
For, reserve for economic uncertainty,
Okay, of 72.
2,540.
72,549.
Okay,
You
I
made
would
the
make,
motion?
I would make that motion, yes.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Smith, seconded by Mr. Harden. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, do the same sign.
And
Did you want to
Carlos
vote on
is
that?
here. You just
No, I
walked
don't
in.
think
Okay, okay.
I was
So
about to say.
we'll get you on the next one.
Would you like to
We
vote on
don't wanna
something
go
you have
back
no
on
idea
this,
about?
this
Yeah.
is- We're knee
Thanks.
deep
It's
in
very
the
light
fiscal
stuff.
policy.
It doesn't take
Right,
long to
totally,
explain at all.
totally
And if
easy.
anyone
Yeah.
would like a copy of the fiscal policy and more
read it and give us a
nighttime
summary.
reading, we'll provide that for you.
Oh, I could probably just quote it off to you, I thought it was so much.
I know, we do.
Super fun times.
You think about it all the time.
No, I wouldn't quite go that far, but.
Okay, so with that, I think we have satisfied 120723.
But we will have a resolution,
Yeah,
because
we'll
we'll
have
need
a,
to,
okay,
to
well,
raise that
that's
money.
our recommendation on the fiscal policy, and we have made the required transfers, or we're recommending those. Okay, moving on to 020823, request set bid opening date for revised paving project. So you would like to carry this
We have
over?
one now. No, we come up with a date now. Robert was talking on the fiscal policy that we got with Mr. Kendrick.
Okay, what is the recommendation on this?
To set it for October 2nd, the first finance committee meeting on October 2nd.
Okay, October 2nd, make that at 4:30
One, at least.
4:31
Bids have to be in by 4:30.
PM. They're due 4:30. We'll open them at 4:31.
So we multitasted while Robert was talking.
Okay, is there a motion for that?
I'll make it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll make
Mr.
it.
Harden, Mrs. Smith seconded that, to set the, bid opening date for revised paving projects, for.
Counselor Jones, will that list be, I know there were some revisions from the June list, so is that online?
Hey,
Are the
Berkeley, can we
projects
get that
online?
list? Can we get the list of what the projects are, the paving projects? Do we have the updated list as to what those are?
The updated specs. That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah, can we just, that'd be great.
Not very many.
Not very many, yeah, cause we can only do so much.
You see, we bid it out one time and it came in over budget.
Oh, I remember.
Oh, yeah, you do?
By a lot.
A little bit.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same time. That passes 4-0.
So you gonna send that list out?
Counselor Alaman is here.
I got it for
Make
the
note of
record.
that.
I do, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have it.
Okay, 0308, 23, request to purchase ad in Business Alabama for Jeff Code Spotlight.
So you can send that over.
So this is a thing that they do every 2 years, I think. And they will do a spotlight on different municipalities in Jefferson County, Homewood being one of them. We did not do this, the last time this happened 2 years ago because we had, decided to put some additional monies into advertising and marketing for the World Games. So we skipped that this
Yeah.
year. I am okay with doing it, but I don't wanna do a full page ad because frankly, their ad prices are really high. And so like he's given me, a break, so the price break is, they give you a 12 times rate, which means essentially you run a ad every month, which we're clearly not doing, but they give you that rate, so it's $2,628 for a full page ad. I think that's too high, for what we'll get out of it, and, I would propose that we either do a half page ad, at $1,880 or a third page ad at $1,624.
Seems like a half-page ad would be more cost-effective.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, I'm not sure how much we really get out of advertising in Business Alabama. I mean, it's not a bad thing at all, but I certainly don't think it's worth a 2,000 over.
Did you say that's
almost a
1184?
1880 for a half page.
1880.
Metrics in terms of.
I mean, it's really hard to do that because I don't know how you quantify what we.
But they would, they should.
Oh,
I mean,
do they
because
do metrics?
Yeah, they should,
They
They should
should.
be able to say why this is valuable to us.
Right. Well, I mean, what they'll say is they're doing they're doing a spotlight on our city. They're gonna, talk to Patrick, and they're gonna do a little article, so that will drive interest, to people in Homewood. But you also have to look at who the readership of Business Alabama is, and I mean, I've got the media kit.
Yeah.
It's not like it's going out to Joe Schmo on the street, come shop at Homewood. It's to a very targeted business, audience.
Vince, I get it, but I just don't see, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
The impact it would really have. In
Yeah,
terms
well,
of
I mean,
what's
that's-
the intention and purpose of driving viewers, visitors, business owners? I mean, I'm just asking the question.
yeah, no, I think it's a very valid question, which is why I absolutely thought the investment of $2,628 was not worth it, because there would never be, I don't think our return on investment would be good at
And
that
I think
cost.
there's other publications, especially for the events that we hold as a city. That
Yeah,
you
and we
get.
do, obviously we do in the Chamber magazine every year, but that's a once a year thing. And we don't do I mean, the Chamber does advertising for events and things like that. The city, we do, in Starnes, we do in the Star.
Which
we
makes
advertise, and we do that.
sense to
Yeah,
them, I think.
it
Yeah.
totally makes sense. But in terms of other publications, we really don't. And I'm in no way married to this. Like I said, I advocated against it 2 years ago because I thought it was much more important to do that advertising
World
for the World Games.
How much
which
was the
actually-
quarter? You said it was just.
no, it was a third. So the half page ad is 1,880 and a third page ad is 1,624.
624, okay.
All right,
Counselor
well, what are
Jones.
other thoughts?
Yeah,
Councilor Jones can ask a question. So, Councilor Smith,
Yeah.
Since this is kind of, you're saying a specific targeted audience, would it make more sense to possibly use that ad to like promote Rosewood Hall, which would also like in turn generate income then? Or-
Well, that's not really,
That's not what that magazine.
that's not really what that
Okay.
magazine
I
is
just
for.
wanted to ask.
Because it's
Okay.
not going out to those I mean, it's going out to a business audience, so it's not going out to like an audience where somebody be like, oh, I'm gonna rent Rosewood Hall for my wedding reception.
Okay.
It's going out to business
Business
owners.
owners.
So Rosewood Hall doesn't have like conferences or that
I mean, they do.
I would say the
but-
majority is, like,
Wedding.
is,
do
no,
have CE
business,
companies, all
business
CEs.
meetings during the day. That's the majority.
But,
of the
and to be honest, I mean, that's not,
You're not getting that
I mean,
from
that's
that.
also, that's being run by Yellow Bicycle, so we would
And
be more.
I think the mayor wants to.
Yeah. Would you like to weigh in, Patrick?
No, I would just suggest, I think, and you guys will hear a little bit more about it next Monday when I present the budget for next year. I think a lot of the marketing dollars that we need to be spending for the city over the course of the next year are really gonna be very focused towards things like the city manager, the special election, all of that kind of stuff that's gonna have to happen.
Yeah.
That I think that our dollars are probably better spent
Doing that.
in that arena than they are necessarily going to a very targeted
I agree.
Yeah.
business area where, we've also got the chamber who, they've increased all of their marketing stuff. We've started the new business spotlights.
Right.
That you guys heard about a couple of weeks ago. I think, just personally,
Yeah.
of course, this is up to you guys, but I would just suggest that we take some of that money and look at what we're gonna be actually needing to focus on over the course of the next year, before we get to, the next election for everybody in 2 years.
Well, and I assume that we're gonna have some legal obligations in terms of promoting that special election for the city manager. I'm assuming we'll have to.
All can do is promote the knowledge of.
Yeah, right.
No positions.
Right, yeah, no, but I mean, we'll have to make sure people know that there is going to be a special election. It's gonna be
Correct.
very important for us to get that message out there.
All right.
Okay.
So
So
what
there's
there is
just
a
just my 2 cents.
motion
Yeah.
to drop or move to drop?
Or, I mean, or do we just vote it? I think it would be to not approve, right? Wouldn't we make a motion to approve and then not approve it, and it wouldn't go out to council, right? Isn't that how that works? I mean, cause we don't wanna, I mean, I don't know, I mean, cause I think,
We just drop it, we just don't have to.
yeah.
We can either vote in the positive against it, or we can move to drop it, and it'll just be on the consent agenda.
Oh, that's
Just
true,
drop it.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to drop.
Second.
Okay, Councilor Allen made the motion to drop. Smith seconded.
Very bad.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, with the same sign, 4-0. That'll go to consent.
I'll be the bad guy.
Okay, last item, 04-08-23, request to present a transportation plan.
This is required by the state. It's basically, we have to post at City Hall and on the city's website, the roads that we've paved in this current fiscal year and what we intend to pave next fiscal year. There's really no, we're not required to spend the money, the state, oh, I'm sorry. I saw your hand and I apologize if anybody else needs one. There you go. We're not, it doesn't require us to spend the money, it's just basically transparency. And this is a list that Berkeley has provided of what we have paved this year, what we intend to pave next year. We'll have to have a resolution adopted by the council to the affirmative that this is our transportation plan. Mr. Kendrick has the resolution that we've used in the past. Yes, it'll be Exhibit A. So once this goes, I'm sorry.
Said he did, saying he didn't have a copy of it, I just know we did.
Yeah, I've gotta send the.
All right, so this is the list, so you don't need to send us the new list. 'cause this is- Oh, no.
It's the renewed, that's what's been paid over the last.
But it says up here 2023, 2024.
I had, that one got messed up.
Oh, okay.
I've gotta resend based
Okay.
off what we
Oh,
got.
I put it on the back, okay. Mr. Jones, I found my second copy. Well,
I think
you
those are
must
just
have, you
additional
must have,
streets.
there you go.
You won't have.
Yeah, it's the same, I don't know how that happened. But, anyway, so we'll, so.
Send the updated one to everybody. Because we're missing page 2.
No, it's page two.
it's there.
It's there.
It's there.
Oh, okay.
It's just this particular one printed off
Yeah,
the
it's
side,
right.
but it's
Oh,
there.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got it.
So you'll need to adopt this, any affirmative by the council. We'll need to post it, at City Hall on the city's website. And then actually, there will be a report that will be submitted, by January 1 of the actual expenses. And that is the city's transportation
All
plan.
right.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to accept the transportation plan?
I make a motion to accept the city transportation plan.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Harden, second by Mrs. Smith. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by the same sign, that's 4-0 passing.
Mr. Judge, I need to make a statement that Mr. Harden asked that I meant to say earlier ago, and I failed to. On the debt service, he asked about, is it timing? And yes, it's timing. We fail because we've got that $6 million bond payment in September. And then on September 30th, we look at the fiscal policy. And that's the reason that it doesn't pass, because of the bond payment going out in September. But it is timing. Glad Mr. Harden asked me that and reminded me of it.
Okay. Any other items? Okay, we went over what I anticipated, but good discussion, and we're adjourned.